opening race for the weekend for the National and New South Wales Sports Sedans Championship, proudly brought to you by Precision International and Kumho Tyres this weekend. Gary O'Brien, a wet race one for the opening race of the weekend.
It certainly is. We've got round 4 of the National Series, round 4 of the State Series. They had separate qualifying sessions and we got one of each on the front row. How good's that?
Absolutely brilliant. Of course, the two top guys from the last couple of rounds as well, so they're both looking to get championship points in their respective championships. Of course, Brad Shields a little bit out of it for the New South Wales Championship with a bit of a tough round last time out, and Caruso is looking to try to draw away from that man behind him, Tomasi, who leads the championship currently.
Yeah, it's Caruso in front, Tomasi behind him, and then on the left-hand side of the track, as we look at it, it's Brad Shields and Andre Homegartner behind him in the Duggan Family Hotels Aston Martin, chef-powered. And, of course, we're underway, and look at the spray in the background as they go down to turn 1. They're gone side by side, and actually, if anything, Shields has put his nose in front. He leads as they head down towards turn 2. Caruso in second. Looks like Homegartner may have got the route to third, but into turn 2, and it's Caruso that gets back the lead.
Caruso and Shields side by side, the rest of the field behind. How good is it to see a huge field of sports sedans? A bit of a sideways moment for Shields, which has gifted the position to Andre Homegartner. But over 30 cars here this weekend, Gary. It shows the real resurgence in this country, this category.
Yeah, and look at this. Here's Homegartner having a look at the lead as they get down to turn 4. Backs out of it slightly there to give him a bit of room. Caruso stays wide. Now they have the run to 5. Through 5 and then up to 6, and it's Caruso in front, but it looks like Homegartner may have got a run on him. He has, and it's Andre Homegartner that leads this as they go to turn 6 on the opening lap.
Look at the way that car as well on the downshifts, just popping both sides out, pushing the water away. It shows you how wet it is here at Sydney Motorsport Park for this opening race at the ARDC Super70. Of course, brought to you by Precision International and Kumho Tyre this weekend. Sports sedans putting on a show, in Caruso as loose as it gets around the corporate hill.
Cold tyres, wet track, you're going to have traction problems, there's no doubt, but imperative to Homegartner was to get out in front. No wipers on that car. He doesn't want the spray behind him. He's gone straight to the lead, just where he wants to be. Caruso, of course, needs to just maintain his position ahead of Steve Tomasi in third. There goes one of the marked cars. The marked cars are in an invited class this weekend, generally because they don't have some of the things that make them comply with sports sedans. And
then just look at this through the field as well. You've got a GTR that's come up from Tasmania. You've got out the outside Spiteri in a car that's effectively still a road-going car in many ways. For a car that moves across the sports sedans. You've got Cox down the inside there in the Saab, which is just brilliant to see back out as well. So many cool cars down through the field trying to fight their way through. Of course, wet qualifying session really jumbled the pack up.
It certainly did, and Liam Hooper's really struggling here. Hasn't driven in the wet at Sydney Motorsport Park. We've seen him at Time Attack, but we haven't seen him in this car racing in this sort of company, and he's finding it very difficult at the moment. Steve Robertson going around the outside of him there. As just ahead of him we've got Rod Monahan in the car that was originally driven by Will Furcher, but with a different engine in it now, that red Monaro. And we look back further, we can see more action there. There goes the Kumho Tyres man himself, Dave Aiken, in the LS powered BMW, and then we go back to this dice back in the field.
Looking to the inside.
Monaro against Monaro, but one is a chassis car, one is a proper sports sedan. Look the same from the outside, but totally different underneath. Yeah. The engine is further back in the number 32 black car. The red car is basically a chassis car, a car that's been developed from a road car into a proper sports sedan.
Anyone who also has followed sports sedans for a long time will know that 32 grey Monaro of Michael Robinson. It's been yellow, it's been a couple of different varieties of colour, but it's won the 50k plate down at Phillip Island a few times. He drives through the field on occasion when he needs to, so he's a strong campaigner and he knows what he needs to do.
He certainly does. And then we see Nick Smith running in that green RX-7 that runs a Nissan Turbo engine. That is a proper space frame sports sedan. And Theo Camburis, who runs in Division 3 in New South Wales, qualified 11th, would you believe? Really liked the conditions.
Of course, Nick Smith as well, qualifying was effectively the first time he's driven that car in the rain, and the first time he'd driven it since round 1 of the National Sports Sedans Championship earlier this year.
Here we've got Beryl Chetton and Steve Lacey. They're 1 and 2 in the New South Wales Sports Sedan Championship. Actually, it's Lacey who leads, and he wants to be in front of Chetan with a round to go after this, and it looks like he's going to get the job done down the straight. Unfortunately, Chetan had a drama at the last meeting, crashed in qualifying, didn't start. That's why Lacey is now leading that championship.
They've both had tough runs at different rounds this year, haven't they? And they're both looking to just collect as many of those points as they can. You'd have to say that over time we've seen as well, Birrell Chetan, like at Sydney Motorsport Park in the wet, the car just isn't quite as strong as we usually see it.
No, and then just behind them there we see Scott Cameron and Nick Smith, New South Wales competitors as well, although Scott has been doing the National Series. And the car started off green and black, it's now orange and black.
Orange and black. They're having a great run as well, just developing that car on and on and on and trying to build it up. Here's Axisa looking to the inside of Spiteri down the straight. And then we've got this big pack at the top of the hill as well. The different varieties of cars all together, just all the way through this field. There's battles everywhere. It's hard to know where to look. As now Nick Smith starts to work on the rear of Cameron. He's starting to find some pace, isn't he?
Yeah, Nick's had some niggly little problems go with that car, but once it goes, it's a jet. It's very quick in a straight line, as you would imagine with that RJ20 turbo engine somewhere under the front of it, not quite at the front, it's sort of slotted back basically under the windscreen, isn't it?
It is. If anyone who doesn't know sports sedans, of course, with a space frame car, you're trying to get that even weight distribution. They pull the engine back behind the centre line of the front axle, all the way back under the windscreen to be able to get it comfortable. It's not comfortable for the driver, but it's a lot more comfortable for the car at speed and balance.
Yeah, the older space frame cars, the engine sits alongside the driver, but in the more modern cars, they've seemed to have pushed the engine a little bit further forward.
Yeah.
You look at the likes of Shane Woodman's BMW and Michael Robinson's Monaro, those cars are more forward. They've developed those cars, they run paddle shifts, they run traction control on them, can't run ABS, and that's something that the marked cars have had to switch off for this weekend. They can't run their ABS, they still have a few other things that make them non-aligned to sports sedans, as it were, but they're certainly the one car of the marked variety that is a proper sports sedan now is the Nick Mantikos car, and he's actually doing pretty well in this race.
He's having a great time, and of course that car, brand new to him after more than a decade of running that Datsun 1600 with the SR motor and other variants of how he sort of powered it and turboed it and all sorts of things going on. And now he's stepped across into this marked car, which he just says is like light and day between the two cars. He loved the Datsun, but he's finding a lot of enjoyment in that marked car as well.
So we're looking at our leaderboard on the left there as we see Nick Smith on the back of Birrell Chetan. It's Homegartner in front, Caruso second, Tomasi in third, then it's Shirls, Mason Kelly, son of Todd Kelly, in fifth spot, leading the mark brigade, you might say, because there's quite a few of them here. Darren Curry, Jeff Taunton in the Mark II car, Mantikos just behind him, also in the Mark II car. Then we've got Lachlan Gardner in 9th position in his Mark I. And Ash Jarvis running the Cole Smith Monaro Chev is in 10th position.
Yeah, Jarvis had a tough run on Friday in practice. They had a few gremlins in that car with the wet weather. Of course, a lot of these cars as well, like the thing you can't forget is they're not like your road-going car. There's no seals. There's not a lot of open area for rain to just come in under the body. And of course, with the electronics and things they're trying to run, you can get water in the electrics and it just does not mix.
Well, the other thing to probably point out at this stage too is the fact that we've got two very basic sports sedans. When I say that, I don't mean that in a derogative sort of point of view, but Charlie Corey and Lachlan Godfrey are both running cars, 2-litre cars, 2 Hondas as it turns out, and they're just outside the top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously the conditions are really suiting those cars.
That's it. That's the other thing we can't forget as well. There's Godfrey just in front of them. But the other thing we can't forget as well is it's so wet here for this race. A lot of these cars don't actually have a bank of wet weather tyres. They're hard to get tyres for these cars. They're unusual sizes, they're big sizes, and you don't often buy the wet weathers because you don't really need to run them that often.
Well, there's no tyre rule as far as wet weather tyres go. You can run whatever you can get hold of, so that's a good point about wet weather, because we don't do it that often. Well, you'd think so, but in Sydney the last couple of years, it's
2022, it's been raining all the way. But here's this battle continuing as Nick Smith has got himself to the back of Birrell Chetan, just not quite able to get past as we get to the midpoint of this race. And it looks like the Pro IT car is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. You can see as well there, anyone who maybe hasn't seen sports sedans before, Chetan's car is left-hand drive. There's a fair few of the cars in the championship that are left-hand drive. You've got a bit of a mix now as we start to build a lot more cars in Australia by Australian design and all that sort of thing. But left-hand drive is sort of the spiritual home of space frame sports sedans, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Nick Smith looking to make a move. Being turbocharged, because you've got that light switch turn on of power that you've got to really moderate in these sorts of conditions. You don't want to have it come on too hard. And they're actually making ground on Godfrey there, which you'd think they should because they're far more powerful cars. But Godfrey's doing a great job to be in front of them.
When they came out for the start of this race, it was bucketing down the green, and towards the midpoint of it, it's sort of eased off a little bit here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Of course, the ARDC Super70 event. Make sure to get out trackside to see 2 more races from sports sedans across Sunday. We've got the GTR slowing down the inside there, so I would suggest that there's some sort of issue.
I think the problem there is just the conditions, just not suitable.
No, exactly.
And you think with being in Tasmania, that wouldn't be the drama, but he hasn't raced here in the wet, and that's the difference. And we can see the Mark cars doing a good job. They're really well suited to this. And I think that's a Gardner car, which is currently running in 10th position. Jarvis just behind him, and Jarvis has just gone out of shot at the bottom of the screen. I think one to watch.
I think Lacey just got past on that lap as well, because I saw a flash of green and red on the timing tower, which tells us that the positions have moved up and down, and it looked like Lacey just got that position. So it's been a good drive through the field for him.
We started 13th.
Yeah, this man in third, Tomasi. Not this man now.
That's Ben Maddox
in the black car.
That's an LS-powered RX-7, so that's a little bit different. That's a chassis car. And by chassis, I mean it's still basically the car that the Mazda put out as a production model, but they've modified it quite substantially, whereas space frame cars are basically a full space frame under a silhouette type body.
As we see at the top of the hill, Brad Shields just switching away. This man at the centre of shot, that is Duggan from the Duggan Family Hotels team. He's running the ex-Perkins engineering Jack Daniels car, as you see a great shot of the side of it there. But he's the man, he's allowed Homegartner to come and race with us a few times this year, but offered the opportunity, offered his car, pride and joy. We've got a yellow flag.
Daniel Crompton off the road in the TA1 Ford Mustang. That is a car that built in Australia, but built basically to Trans Am specs that we have out of America. We only have a couple of cars.
Oh, no.
I don't think we're going to see him get out of there in a hurry by the look of it.
He's going to have to get out and let the tyre pressures down, because he's gone well wide, and unfortunately at that point of the grass it dips away rather heavily towards the wall, and you're up against the earth embankment that was built here around the track, so water just sits in that corner.
Well, we've seen Shane Bradman go off in qualifying in the same sort of manner and tried to clutch trying to get back out of that, so unfortunately he was a non-starter in this.
We've seen cars get bogged there in dry weather, Gary. That's how much water sits there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been so wet around Sydney of late that's the thing. There's our Precision National Sports Sedan Series leader at the moment. He's been doing it fairly comfortably apart from today, and now we see Homegartner go down the inside of one of the lap cars.
He's just got to hold on here though. Caruso started to close the gap. There's Kakuri on the inside.
Oh, Caruso
no!
Off.
Gone. He's made the gravel trap. That's been a huge moment.
Well, I'd say that he's tried to lap the same car that Homegartner did, and maybe he didn't know he was there, or he went the wrong side. But unfortunately, he's going to lose the position at least. And Tomasi's gone to second, Shields to third. So this has been not what he wanted to do.
Oh, look at the mess. He's trying to get on as safely as he can, but also not lose as much time as possible. You'll need to be careful here. Get on the brakes early, because what you'll find is you'll shoot straight off, because there's mud and gravel and all sorts of stuff all over the tyres.
Well, everyone else will have to be a bit wary of the mud that he's brought on.
At least there's only a lap to go, but unfortunately for Caruso, that's just dropped him so far down the field. There's our leader, Homegartner. So you can see he's coming over the crest as Homegartner leaves turn 6. That's how much he's dropped from that little off-track excursion.
Well, Homegartner's renowned for his wet weather efforts. We remember on the Gold Coast one year in one of the Brad Jones Racing Commodores that he did such a good job as the co-driver, started a race and just shot away and left them all for dead. So he's quite adept in the wet weather, although like everyone else, they all agree that they don't like racing in the wet, but they do it because they have to.
Exactly.
And Andre Homegartner comes out of turn 11 and heads down the straight, and he will win the first race of round 4 of the Precision International National Sports Sedan Series here at Sydney Motorsport Park as part of Super 70.
What a great race it was as well. We'll see Caruso drop down the order on the timing screen as he comes across the line. There we go, Homegartner takes the checkered flag. we'll have to wait for the rest of the field to come through to see where everybody shakes out in the wash. Tomasi will pick up a few more of those championship points in the Precision National Sports Sedan Series.
It looks like Caruso's got back to third spot, so he hasn't leaked that many points in reality, which is a good thing.
Absolutely brilliant effort there to be able to bring that back. You see Tomasi go up to second. There's Caruso across the line. Cameron is going to follow them home as well, though I think he might have had an off track because he's actually a long way down the field compared to where I probably expect him to be. Here comes Brad Shields around the top.
He'll be in fourth position.
First state car home and fourth national championship car home.
Exactly. And then Mason Kelly in fifth, Darren Curry in sixth, Jeff Taunton in seventh, Steve Lacey up to 8 from 13th, and then we've got Nick Mantikos in ninth position. Jarvis was in 10th, but I have a feeling he may have fallen off the track somewhere. He may have dropped back a bit. We just have to wait and see as our timing updates. I understand we're hearing that he may have had a spin at turn 8 on the last lap. Would you believe it?
Jeez. Never rains but it pours when you're going to have a tough weekend,
I think he just got ahead of Gardner at that stage as well. So we just wait.
Oh, there he is.
So he has had a lose there, and that's unfortunate. On the very last lap, when you think things are starting to warm up a bit and it's all starting to happen.
Be careful not to roll too far off the track there, Jarvis. It's very boggy in that section. Robinson's slowed as well here at the finish. I just saw a puff of white from the car. I wonder if he's locked up. We'll see. We'll know as soon as he gets on the straight. If he powers down, he'll be fine. But if he doesn't, he's a bit slow to get away, isn't he? So maybe he's had some sort of issue right at the line, and Chetton coming charging down the inside too. I don't know if that was actually for a position.
Will be 13th by the look of it.
Oh, Willem Furcher's got up to 10th place right at the line. I just saw the timing change. So absolutely brilliant result there for Furcher. And that's the opening race done for the Kumho Tyres New South Wales Sports Sedans Championship and the Precision International National Sports Sedans Championship here at Sydney Motorsport Park.